Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Olimpia Mesa, and you're watching Think Like Talk Show. We started this project together with the team from the How People Learn book project, and we are thinking that through this online events, we could invite you to think differently, to be a lifelong learner, and if we can help you with something that you want to learn with, remember to write down in the comments what questions do you have for today's guest. Also, we are inviting you to not only ask questions, but also participate with answers. Every time I ask our guests a question, you can answer in the comments, and together with our guests, we'll go through the answers and choose the best ones that we want to recognize in the world with educational products. Why we do that? Because we believe that if you are here with us today, then you are a lifelong learner, no matter the place or the job or the role you have. You could be an educator, a trainer, a CEO, or simply a parent. So join us for this conversation on how to think long-term, big picture, and also sustainability. When I say sustainability, I mean sustainable thoughts, but also acts. And today, our guest is joining us all the way from Canada. Hello, Charles. Charles Hopkins is the chair of the UNESCO University. UNESCO Chair of Reorienting Education. And his main, let's say, expertise, it's how the way I met him and the way I was impressed about was thinking long-term, big picture. And this is why I consider him my mentor in terms of sustainability. He's joining from Canada. As I said, it's 11 a.m. Charles, I hope you have more energy. It's evening here in Romania. Hello.
Hi, good morning and good afternoon to you. I guess, what is it, about 6 o'clock there?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Charles, for joining me today. I will say again that it's a privilege to meet you. It was very difficult for me to explain to some people your role. That's why I would like to. I was rumbling when actually saying it. I guess that I'm not the only one. Maybe you can help me explain it better, because I know you work worldwide. You work with teams that sometimes mean 100 people at a time. You run and you lead 2 international projects, in very important research projects. So maybe you can share about that.
Yeah, sure. Just a word. At one point, I was a teacher. I've been a principal. I've been a regional superintendent of schools here in the city of Toronto. And then in the mid 1990s, I moved to the university world. And in 1999, I assumed this chair role. UNESCO created a program in order to expand their capabilities. They reached out to various universities to engage with professors who had specific background, knowledge, and expertise in areas that were the concern of the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. So they call them UNESCO chairs. My particular chair, as Olimpia said, is in reorienting education systems towards sustainability or towards sustainable development and the concepts that are in it. Now, my particular chair is sort of concerned with what is quality education, and especially quality education that aims towards a more sustainable future. We'll also look into the idea of how do we improve the education of the most marginalized and the most poorly served in society, and that's largely the world's indigenous people. We look at how do we bring sustainability into higher education. And the reason for that is that a very small proportion of people actually get to go to universities. but that small proportion, it may be 10% of the world's population at most. But that 10% will become 80 to 90% of the people who will shape the future of the world. So it's very important that we engage with university world and so on. So these are the kinds of things that I'm working with. Also, how to use education, public awareness, and training to build more sustainable communities and cities. So the network that we have reaches into 175 cities and regions in all continents. Now, I also work with, we've created with the team here two large networks that Olimpia mentioned. One is on reorienting teacher education institutions, and that's in about about 50 countries. And another network is looking into improving the education of the indigenous youth, and that too is in about 50 countries. So most of my thinking is yes, on a global basis.
Thank you, Charles. We will immediately find out how you define sustainability. And I have a few more questions to dig deeper and get all the brilliance out of you for everybody who's watching us today. But before that, we would like to know you better. And even on a personal level, now that you know what kind of work you do, we would like to know the person doing all that work. And for that, as all of you who are watching us not for the first time, you know that in the first part of the show, when we want to know better the guest, I've prepared a quiz, and we start with the quiz like not like in school to test you. It's to get to know you better, Charles. So we will have questions like choose from A to B or ABC versions of an answer, and you can choose, you have to choose quickly and explain your choice only at the end of the quiz. So for 30 seconds, that's how much we have for 10 questions. You ask immediately what comes to your mind, but then at the end, you can, of course, explain any of your choices if you want. Or maybe I'll have some additional questions depending on what you answer. So are you ready? We are starting.
Okay, here we go. Are there right and wrong answers, or can I just let
No,
them?
there are no wrong or right answers. This is just how you think, and maybe we'll learn how you've decided to give a chance to answer A or answer B after we finish the quiz. You can explain, okay?
Sure.
So the first question is soil, air, or water?
Water.
Past, present, or future?
Future. I'm future oriented. Yep.
Honey or maple syrup?
Maple syrup.
I thought so. You're in Canada. Cycling or walking?
Walking.
Traveling by train or by plane?
Train.
Imagine we are in the Middle Ages, Charles. You are a landlord, a warrior, or a farmer?
Well, I'd like to be the landlord. Yeah.
The landlord, okay. Teaching or learning?
Learning, yeah.
Recycling or reducing consumption?
Reducing consumption.
Conservation or preservation?
It's both. Conservation.
Okay. Digital literacy or civic literacy?
Civic literacy.
First, okay. Thank you, Charles. What was the question? Those are the 10 questions, and I think I know you better now. Which one was the most surprising one? And maybe you want to explain it.
The difference between digital literacy and civic literacy, I think. I interpreted civic literacy as the ability to be a total all-around citizen and know my roles, my responsibilities, and so on as a human being. Whereas digital literacy is just one attribute that I think everyone needs and must have. You know, if we're going to understand fake news, if we're going to be able to compete in the workplace, if we're going, yeah, it's important. But I think the overarching one of who am I as a person and as a citizen, and I think that's a bigger goal.
I was expecting that answer, child. Well, that's not right for me to say, but I know you as a holistic thinker, and that's why I was in love. It was love at first sight when I heard your definition of sustainability. And I precisely requested for you to get it ready for today. So, can you please explain it, or just say it, or and explain it if you want to everyone with us today?
Yeah. Well, the United Nations, you know, when they came up with the concept to try and solve the problem between those who wanted environmental protection and those who wanted development because they were living in terrible poverty, the United Nations came up with an overall framework for countries that it bought into called sustainable development. And the UN definition was sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the current generation without limiting future generations from meeting their needs. But the one that I found that I really liked is from an African indigenous person, and his definition, it was a male, it was enough for all forever. Enough for all forever. If anyone can think about what is enough, you know, what do I really need? Need versus greed and so on. What is enough? And then for all is the really important one for me because it came from an indigenous person. The for all is not limited to humans. This is very important because the UN definition is all about humans. You know, humans, today's humans meeting their needs so that they don't limit future humans from their needs. So I think the indigenous perspective of enough for all forever. Now, in Scandinavia, they've even built more on that. And they're saying in a northern or a wealthy concept, in, enough is kind of like things or stuff. And so they changed enough to the concept, the much broader concept of well-being. And I think this is another one that, you know, maybe in a future show, you could really delve into what constitutes well-being, you know, the meaningfulness. It's not just being well off, right? So they say well-being for all, and they keep that for all being beyond humans and forever being intergenerational.
Wow, this is wow, love it. And I was preparing the questions, and then I found out something interesting for myself, and I thought maybe I can ask you a question, but also let you know about a thinker that we had here in Romania many years ago as the Minister of Education. And I will link my next question to one of his quotes that I love. The name of this minister, he was, I think, 3 times minister in the 19th century. The name is Spiru Haret, and he said that the way the school looks today, it's the way the country will look tomorrow. So if you think about this, let's expand it and say the way schools look today in the world, that's how the world will look tomorrow or in the future. What do you think will it be like? What the future looks like? in this case?
I think it's very, very profound because schools play a big role. They're not the total. I mean, we have parents and so on. But as we grow, we develop a certain worldview, a way of thinking. And schools contribute greatly to that. The longer you're in the school, the more you are shaped by it. And then as you become an adult, throughout your adult life, you kind of shape that world, that you live in. It's how you vote, how you participate, who you associate with, who and how you live your life. So I think that is truly great insight. But the problem is today's schools are shaped by the last generation. It's the schools don't have much freedom. Education systems. I was superintendent of curriculum for the largest school district in Canada. But in order to bring in change, I could do small change. But in a democracy, it's parents who have the final say in big changes. So school systems are very slow to change. But maybe at some point, people will be able to make comments and send in whether they agree with that or not. But the schools we need in the future are being controlled by the schools of the past. And it is a huge conundrum. We do have an opportunity, though, because of the pandemic. People are expecting and will accept change. So we have this little tiny window of opportunity, and we need ideas as to what should schools, and more importantly, not just individual schools. That's how we think, but how do we change school systems? So it's not just what is taught, what is examined, what is valued, those kinds of things. But that's your area too, Olympia.
Yeah, you know what I've observed is that when we talk about education, we use the word system, education system, while because I'm also in the business world, and in the business world, we say business world, not business system. And one day playing with this, I asked somebody from the education system, I asked them just for 1 minute, try to say something about your area of of work, but do not use the word system. Just use education world, the education world, the education world. And then you can try, if you're not convinced that this semantics changes the way we think, you can do a different thing, say business system, and then see how that feels. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's education. We too often think of it. Those of us who are in the education, formal education world, mostly, right? It's just like people who are in the business world. They have their own language and so on and think of commerce. But just as so much commerce goes on outside formal businesses, right? There's commerce, barter, trading, the exchange of knowledge that goes on. So to education, so much of education goes on outside of formal education. And so that's why I earlier tried to make the distinction of within formal education system as that's just one system, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea very much of the education world, but that connotates the public awareness and what you soak in the way of from society around you that shapes you, the advertising, the what you hear on the news, what you overhear parents talking about, all of this shapes you and your worldview.
What if now we go back through to a one single person? What does it mean for one of us, for me, for you as a person, or for one of those watching today? what does it mean to think sustainable and have sustainability thoughts and actions on your table every day?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you wake up in the morning, what does
Yeah.
it mean to think sustainable?
Well, I think there are a number of things that would go through your mind. If I put them in two big chunks, one big chunk would be what, and I think many of those who are watching and have heard of and understand, and that's one's ecological footprint, right? The resources that we use, how we live our life, what is the temperature in our home, the food we eat, was it local, all of that. So the the impact of us being alive on the planet. But the other one that we have to remember is the ecological handprint. So that is what we can do with our lives to reduce our footprint, to reduce the footprint of others, to contribute meaningfully, not only environmentally, but socially, being accepting of others, uh, trying to gain knowledge of others. So overcoming racism and injustices and so on, and even economically, uh, our handprint into the decisions we make and so on. So it's balancing these two. Then we can start looking into each of these two big pots, the footprint and the handprint, and just coming up with sort of a guidance system. Now, at my age, I'm at a point where I'm trying to get rid of things. But many young people, and especially young families who are out there, they're at a stage where they're accumulating. They're still trying to get the resources they need to live. And I think one of my guidance system for the last few years has been um, sort of elegant simplicity, or the the idea of not really minimalism, but checking and saying, what do I need? But I love beauty. I love it being something that is of substance that will last. But I think each of us have to come up with it. It would be interesting when people send in their ideas, so that answer to that question. What is the most important thing when you start your day? Whether it's how long you leave the tap on, while when you wet your toothbrush and not leave the water running, through to much bigger things like what do you ask your parents to buy you today?
Yes, please, everyone watching us today, we have one entire week to read your answers. So it's not only right now in the live Facebook event, it could be tomorrow when you are watching this, or the day after tomorrow. Until next Wednesday, you have the time to answer the same question I'm asking our guest. Charles, I have in my book, How People Learn, I have some challenges, brain challenges for kids for each of the goals for the year 2030. What I've observed is that some of them are overlooked. When we say sustainability, we think three or four of the goals, and then the others stay in the shade, or we don't talk about them that much. Which one do you think we should revive, think more about, because people overlook them usually?
Yeah. I I think two ways. First of all, it depends on your age. It depends on your capability. It it depends on your own particular interest. So uh, the big challenge for societies is not to look at an individual goal, but to look at all the goals in their entirety. Okay? It's sort of like, think of it as a patchwork quilt, for your bed. It's made of old pieces. They're very old fashioned, but now they're coming back in and probably very expensive. But the idea of one patch may help a little bit, but altogether, they form a way of thinking and a way of moving forward. So it's very important that you pick one or two or three, but that you partner with others around it, right? So individually, I keep this. This is the Sustainable Development Soccer Ball. One on its own, together, they're useful, right? You can do something with this, and so I think this is maybe a way of thinking of the answer. Each one is important at a certain time to a certain person, but we need to think of how through partnerships and working together we can accomplish something concrete and real.
Yeah, you are so right. Like I'm thinking about protecting the ocean and the underwater, and I remember talking about this with children, and they were like, we are in the mountains. There are no oceans here. There are so many other ways we can take care of the oceans while being up in the mountains and living here. And you're so right. I'll get back to that and see how we can do this better. I am a practitioner, so we are going deep into how to embed this on an everyday level. Thank you so much. And now we are switching to the third part of this talk show, where you will get some, I say, easy questions, because these are questions for kids. These questions are from the How People Learn game. And usually we play this with children and parents sometimes. So I know for sure that you will do just fine. The first question is, the first question is, share how you fight the urge to do something later.
Say that again. How do
you fight the urge to procrastinate, to leave things for later? I hope you're fighting this. Be an example, please, for children watching us.
Yeah, I'll answer that later. What's the next question?
Okay, the next one is.
I'm only you, Olimpia. Yes, the natural tendency is, if I like what I need to do, I'm right on it, right? If I don't like it, then the thing is, leave it, maybe it'll go away, and so on. So I think the one trick that I try to do is, the first thing I do in the morning in my way of work is the hardest one that is facing me. And so whether now the hardest one for me when I get up in the morning would be exercise, but I do procrastinate that because I'm not a great morning person. So my walk and so on is later in the day. But from a work perspective, but I think the idea of find the hardest thing, do that one first, and then others kind of fall into place.
Okay, thank you, Charles. That's insightful. I'm doing the same with exercises. I'm doing my best. I can so much resonate with you on this one. Name 3 things that you're curious about. I wonder if adults are curious enough these days. So let's see.
Yeah. One of them is, how do people change their deep behavior, how they look at things? Okay, that's. Do you want the reason why, or just 3 things?
No. Just the 3 things you're curious about, because you probably don't know the answer. That's why you're curious.
Yeah. But I want to know how to see change and how to bring about change. I'm very, very interested in how people learn, And I'm extremely interested in why I see things the way I see them.
Oh my God. This one is on my list now too. Thank you, Charles. And the last question is, what can, well, I'm actually reinventing the question now for you, because the card is, I'll be honest, the card says, what kind of games do not exist but should? But I will redesign the question for you, because we are talking adults now. So what kind of schools or maybe communities do not exist but should?
I think one of the big things that's missing in schools is, first of all, the joy of giving young people and everyone in formal education systems the opportunity to pursue what they're really good at. Because everyone, I think, needs to feel worthiness, meaningfulness, and that they're good at something. So if there was time scheduled in during the day where and students were brought from junior kindergarten right through their life, were brought through to the point where it was just natural for them to pursue their own dream, no matter what it was. That's an element that is in there. The second element, and I'm not sure how our timing is going, but the second element is schools that shift the responsibility for learning successfully to the individual, instead of putting more and more pressure on schools to entertain more. But schools have to create joy in the beginning. They have to give them the tools of how to learn. They have to show them the variety of wonderful things that are out there to learn, and then shift the responsibility to them to learn in a context of lifelong learning. So again, I'm talking system, not individual school.
Yeah, we understand. And we've got a question, a very interesting question. Well, this is from Roxana. She says, hello, everyone. Hello, Roxana. Thank you so much. And if you would have to give 3 characteristics of the ideal education post-pandemic system or world, what would those be? Not a very simple question, but that's the last one, I promise.
Yeah. I think one, of course, would be, if we're to look at the post-pandemic, one is a system would have the concepts and the understanding of sustainability built into it, of course. I think that is one. Another one would be one of learning to live together with others, you know, in a sustainable manner, and where the others is beyond human. And another would be a school system that addresses the deep philosophy of life. It examines what makes us human. Uh, it challenges: are we simply another animal on the planet? Are we a special? What is different about us? Uh, sort of what makes us human? What makes us a good human? So those deep, the philosophy of humanity, I think, should be embedded as a part of a quality education system.
Yes, you speak, and I'm already rethinking and re-embedding everything you say, like teaching children, when you ask children, what is history? So that in the future we get answers like, not this is a science, but history is how we learn to do better. Or what is arts? Arts are about redesigning the future. So that's what pops up in my mind listening to you. Thank you so much, Charles. Hope to see you very, very soon again. And I hope you'll be healthy and full of energy to sustain the projects that you have, and gather around you lots of people around the world. I want you to know that starting today, you already have a lot of funds in Romania and in this part of the world. And yes, thank you so much. I'm grateful. Thank you.
And so am I. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you again, Olympia. And I look forward to see what other people have sent in their ideas or their questions. Not that's question, but mainly their ideas. We don't need more questions. I need some great ideas from young people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who contributed in the comments today, and to those of you who will contribute with comments in the coming week, until we meet again next Wednesday with a very special friend of mine from Romania, but working worldwide. But I'm not saying anything else. See you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.